I got one.
Yep.
Star Wars is not sci-fi. It is fantasy. Yay or nay?
So you're saying that one of the most popular science fiction movie franchises is not science fiction?
No.
Well, I mean, you'd have to convince me.
Okay. So you're nay.
I'm nay. I'm locking in nay.
Yeah. So the reason that it's not science fiction, is for one primary reason, which is something that's very common in a lot of science fiction, and that is faster than light travel. So here let me break down what fantasy and science fiction are. Science fiction, regardless of whether or not it takes place in the past, a long time ago, or in the future, okay? It is something that is feasibly possible, okay? Yeah. So I would say that it's, eventually within naturalism, that can happen, okay?
Yeah.
So, a Death Star, all of these things, possible, okay? I would say it's within the realm of the natural order.
Yeah, it doesn't break any laws of physics.
Doesn't break any laws. But I would say there are several things in Star Wars that go against naturalism. Now, philosophically, naturalism is the idea that there's only that which is the natural. So a lot of metaphysical things can't be real because it's outside of natural. So
it's exactly what it sounds like.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Let me explain.
Natural things.
Let me instead of mansplaining it, it's like nerd-splaining.
Yeah, that's what I felt like.
Yeah.
We could have inferred.
Yeah. Okay. So, and a lot of people are like, well, that was not only reductive. There's a better definition of naturalism, but I
liked it.
Thank you. Well, thank you. There are a couple things in Star Wars that I think go against naturalism, which is, first, faster than light travel. Mm-hmm. We can't do that from my current understanding of how light works.
So hyperspeed.
Light speed.
Yes.
We can't go faster than that.
But we can go as fast as
as fast as that. And the Force, that would be something, even if we understood certain parts of the cell...
Metachlorians.
It does go against our own understanding of that. And, there's one more thing that I thought broke it, but I can't remember off the top of my head because I didn't write these down.
Yeah, must have been important.
Must have been super important. But I think that all of those can be within fantasy. You have magic, you've got wizards, you've got wherever. I think that it's okay to say... Just because there aren't trees everywhere and there's a lot of metal doesn't mean that it's sci-fi and fantasy. So that's my explanation. Okay. You can pick it apart and do what you will.
Yes, because, I think giant laser beam Death Star, as ridiculous as that is, still sci-fi.
I think, that's possible.
And I think space magic, which is the Force, yes, is magic. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. But would the presence of magic delude all the science that happens? Lightsabers themselves are sci-fi.
Sure, yeah.
I really like them to be possible.
Yeah, I think they are.
And if they're not, I'm going to cry.
But within fantasy, there are things that are still possible.
Okay. Well, yeah.
And so...
And science is just magic explained. And so I guess... Well,
you're like Jane Foster and Killer. It's just something we don't understand yet.
But I guess to the point I was about to make actually goes against what I was trying to make because I don't think they ever explain it.
Which part?
Space magic, the Force.
Oh, yeah.
It's magic because it's not science.
Mm-hmm.
And so if science fiction and fantasy are in the same place in bookstores, same columns, magic, science... futuristic, outlandish things that don't exist yet, whether magical or science. I guess Star Wars does kind of fall in a gray area.
I think that Star Trek, from how I understand Star Trek, does not break any laws of naturalism.
Yeah.
So it's fine. And I think that there might be even some fantasy that would also, it is just medieval, but it's just medieval fiction.
Yeah. But even their magic has rules.
Or if they don't have magic, that's what I mean. It's just medieval fiction.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But
because that's still fantasy. You're right.
And so that's why I think that fantasy cannot exist within the natural world.
Yeah.
And so when people create a new world completely with its own kind of order and rules, it's very different than another planet, which with its own atmosphere and its own sense of gravity, and we would need a universe with its own specific kind of teleological constants, which I don't think they do in sci-fi, which would be interesting.
Yeah.
But that would be the only place that I'd concede magic in sci-fi.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think from a base standpoint, I always went one's future and one's past, theoretically. You know, that's kind of how the progression would go. Heck, you could even turn a fantasy concept into sci-fi by just making years go by.
By making it in space.
Yeah, if there's hover cars, it's sci-fi. You know? And so a lot of the droid stuff, that's science fiction. I would argue that there's robots. There are literal robots, armies of them.
Sure.
I don't see that being fantasy.
I think that it's the story collectively. So individual components. That's why when I say that it could be, there's a difference between medieval fiction and fantasy. If people are categorizing things, which most people don't. Most people, it's if there are trees on the cover and a sword, it's fantasy and not medieval fiction. And the same goes for if it's in space, it's sci-fi.
Yeah.
But I think that there are certain things within most sci-fi stories that don't necessarily break naturalism. And I think that Star Wars does.
Yeah. I would almost argue that Star Wars, if you replaced all the science fiction of it with fantasy themes, the story wouldn't change at all.
I don't think it would.
That makes me feel like it's fantasy because it's just futuristic fantasy. Then is that a new genre?
I don't think so.
You think it's just fantasy?
I think that I would want to be more simultaneously more inclusive and exclusive with my genre defining. Which people argue these things all the time.
Sure.
And so the only thing that I want to know is that I make a convincing argument for you to be able to say that Star Wars is fantasy.
No. I want to know your last point because I'm on the edge. But
I don't remember.
We'll never know that, I guess.
All right, so I guess it's nay.
I say nay.
Dang.